parenting. Most of us want to be parents, and it's perhaps considered the most fulfilling job in the world. Yet, our sages tell us it is the most difficult job in the world for so many reasons. I hope to share with you ideas and why parenting is difficult and how to overcome these difficulties with a practical tip at the end. Parenting is challenging because our children are all different. While one strategy might work for another one may fail, and you may feel like a failure as a parent. My parents taught me, and I came out great, one may think. Yet I'm applying the same strategies, and it's not working for my child at all. And we have to take a step back as parents, because if we're not growing with our children, as our children change, as they enter different phases and different stages in their lives, if we're not changing with them, then we're falling behind on parenting. And yes, every single child is different, and it could be a challenge trying to learn them, trying to learn how to parent them best. Our generation, parenting skills are different than in the generations past. While in the past generations, parents naturally spend time with their children, in our generation, we need to be told to spend time with our children. We need to be told to allocate time for them, because we live in a world where it's like you're rolling with the punches. You're putting one foot in front of the other. Before you know it, the year is over. Before you know it, they all grew up, your children, and you wonder where has the time gone? If this was true, and this is true in past generations, if you ask anyone from previous generations, they will say, time goes by so quickly. Value your children, value your time together. How much more so in our generation? Children are all different, and we need to know how to approach them, each one in their own way. As students as well, students are also approached differently. Everyone is different, and this could present a tremendous challenge. One parenting strategy will work for one child, while it won't work for another child. And the children understand this, and the children compare themselves, and they feel like life is unfair, they're not treated the same. It's difficult to teach them sometimes that one idea or strategy may work for one child and not the other. There's so much info out there for parenting, and you wonder which one is right, which parenting strategy is right for me. There's so much. In the past, you actually practice a strategy, the ways of parenting that your parents practiced and your grandparents practiced. Yet now you could be influenced by different factors in society. You could read books. This is all great, and yet it can also be overwhelming, because you may not know what should I do and when I parent my child. Another challenge is your neighbors, relatives, friends, children don't even have great parenting strategies from their parents, and yet they turn out to be great kids. And you wonder, you put so much effort into your children, learning the best strategies, the best practices, and yet they are so challenging. Also, when you and your spouse parent, you probably parent differently, and you wonder, how can this child, this is one of the most common challenges I hear from women, is that my husband, my spouse parents differently than me. And it is difficult for us sometimes to find the one way, but yet we have to understand that parents, when they parent, the child gets used to each strategy. If one child is more lenient, the child will understand that. If one parent is less lenient, the child will adjust to those differences. But yet it could be challenging for us to keep that one voice, the united voice, which is obviously what the child needs. We have to remember that as a child changes and grows older, our parenting strategies must change. You cannot give the same consequence to a 2-year-old versus a 12-year-old versus a 22-year-old. Hopefully, they're already ready to come out of the house by then and make their own lives and create their own families. But we can't apply the same kind of consequences and parenting strategies for each of their ages in different stages. So the first idea out of the 3 ideas I want to share with you about parenting will help us understand why parenting is so important and hopefully how to overcome this challenge. The first thing we have to understand is that the challenge of parenting is understanding our important task. This is such a tremendous task in our hands. There's no task in which we devote more time and energy than raising our children. And then there's no guarantee, right? You do your best and then the child turns out, God forbid, one way, a way that you actually haven't asked Hashem to. You feel like Hashem didn't get your email. This is not what I wanted, right? Sometimes we feel that way. One of the major commentators explains that children are referred to as our toil because the main goal to which all our striving and efforts are directed to is the production of fine children. Our goal is to toil in raising our children, to work hard. What do we mean by fine children? Does it mean excellent dress, impressive initials, a proud 6-figure income, or expansive homes? Is that what we want from our kids? Our own and others' evaluations of our successes or failure in life depends largely on whether we succeed in raising God-fearing children, fulfilled and successful. This is what we want from successful children, from God-fearing children. We want them to be fulfilled. This is what we mean by fine children. Each of us knows people who, for all outward appearances, have been successful in virtually all their endeavors, and yet who view their lives as failures because they did not produce the type of children to which they have hope, and they feel an emptiness in their lives because that spiritual void has not been filled. The first commandment in the Torah is man was given the commandment is to be fruitful and multiply. Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch offers an alternative interpretation. The first commandment also implies to shoot or aim. The Torah is telling us that our task as parents is not just to have children, but to guide them to the goal for which they were created to. Each of our children was created for a certain goal, a certain purpose, and it's the wisdom that we need, the clarity that we need from Hashem to enable us to see what our children need to shoot and aim for that goal, and that could be a challenge. The second idea is called trickle-down parenting. So the process by which we guide our children is usually referred to as Hinuch Habanim, the education of children. But Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky of blessed memory stated that parents are not primarily educators, but they are the ones who influence. Mishpaim. The root of mashpaim is related to the word meaning something inclined. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky meant that parents are like a slanted roof in relation to their children. Everything they do and say flows down from them onto their children and leaves its effect, though often not the one that we intend. This is what we meant by trickle-down parenting. It's just all affected. Our children are affected in these ways. Educators attempt to transmit information to our children in a direct fashion. The influence of parents is often indirect, but actually it's very influential. The Zohar in Parshas Veit Hanan has an interpretation of familiar phrases in the Shema. It says, teach them thoroughly to your children and speak to them while you sit in your home. The Zohar asks, when do we teach our children? And it answers, when we are sitting in our homes. What do you mean the way I'm sitting? The way I act in the privacy of my home. Am I enthusiastic to say Birkat Hamazon or am I delaying it, right? Am I excited to do mitzvot? The way I interact with my spouse, the way I speak about others on the phone. It's all very, very important. Am I watching movies or am I listening to lectures? These are all lessons that we teach our children indirectly, however, very influential. The parental example can be the most effective way of inculcating our values to our children. It can also be the biggest impediment to our children's acceptance of the message we're trying to convey. Let's say your son comes home and he comes home and the teacher sends him with a note saying he lied in school. And there you are giving him a lecture, 1 hour lecture, the importance of not lying in school. Yet a second later, a phone call comes in the house phone. He picks up the phone. The son picks up the phone, says, "Papa, it's for you." The father says, tell them I'm not home. And there goes your lecture out the window. That 1 hour lecture, you could say to your child, tell them I'm not available. And that's it. But teaching our children through example is much more powerful than just talking the talk. Okay. Educate the youth according to his way. And that is the last idea. All of those who write about child raising stem off Shlomo HaMelech's advice. Educate the child according to his way. The end of the verse also says, for when he grows up, he will not depart from it. What is the it that he will not depart from? Rabbi Shlomo Brewer interpreted the verse to mean, educate the child according to his way, because when he grows up, he will not depart from his way. In other words, a child is born with a certain nature, innate nature and personality, temperament. He has special talents and weaknesses. Those are with him for life. Our job is to work with those traits and not against them, because they're not going to change. The Gaon makes the same point about natural inclinations in his commentary in Mishlei. There he quotes the Gemara in Shabbos Kufnun, that one who is born under a certain sign of the zodiac will become a spiller of blood. Rabbi Eliezer says he might be a mohel or a murderer, a doctor or a highwayman, but one way or another, he's going to be a spiller of blood. Take your child's negative traits and turn them into positive traits. And the practical tip is turn them into positive traits by taking the negative. If they're loud, believe that they're passionate and tell them that they're passionate. If they're annoying, tell them they're determined. If they're messy, tell them that they're curious. They want to try new things. Shlomo HaMelech is telling us, discover your child. Learn who he is, not what you liked him to be. Then work with his talents and personality to raise well-adjusted children, secure children. My personal example is when it was during Corona time. I was positive during the school year. I'm an educator in a school, and it was a mild case, and I didn't, I was sent home, and I told my kids, okay, they're gonna go to school tomorrow. And one of my children said, "Mom, that's not right. We're supposed to technically all be home." And that was difficult for me because I said, you know what? This is the biggest lesson I can teach, more than telling them to tell the truth. And I had all of them home. And yes, it was annoying. And yes, it was on Zoom again and calls back and forth. And yes, I had to serve my family. And it was difficult, even though I wanted everyone out of the house probably for a week, obviously, when I was quarantined for 5 days. But that was a bigger lesson to teach. And yes, that's what I did, because I didn't want my children to think that you say one thing and you really mean another, or you try to hide the truth, or hide your responsibilities, say one thing and do another. And this is what's important. My practical top tip to you is spend time with your children, doing what they want to do. If they like to draw with them. They want to do Play-Doh. Watch a game with them if they want, if they love games, and if they love, sports games. It may not be comfortable, but the louder message you're showing to them is that you're important to me. I'm stopping everything I'm doing for you, as busy as I am. And allocate that time on a consistent weekly basis, as much time as you can, whether it's 15 minutes, whether it's half an hour, but make it consistent. Look forward to it. And you're going to make them feel important, on top of the world. And they're going to respect you more. And they're also going to listen to you more. When a person is valued, respected, loved, and thought of as important and believed in, they are going to produce in this world. They're going to be productive. They're going to be, God willing, with Hashem's help, the way Hashem wants them to be, and live this life and navigate this life successfully. I hope these ideas were helpful. They're taken from Rabbi Franz, Yisachar Franz's book on ideas that were written in print. Leah Abramov, Being and Becoming, Awakening Awareness of Your Greatness and Potential.